to Deep Sleep Stories. Thank you to everyone who's been listening. If these stories help you relax or fall asleep, a short review, comment, or sharing the podcast with someone who might benefit is a simple and meaningful way to support the show so that we may continue to offer it for free. Now, take a slow, gentle breath and let's begin tonight's story.
Welcome and settle in with Deep Sleep Stories, where the night is kind and unhurried. Tonight you'll drift into a gentle tale about a small fox who finds a lantern in the hush of the forest, and how its quiet glow leads him through wonder, warmth, and rest. Take a moment to get comfortable, just as you are. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw unclench. If your hands are holding anything, tension, thoughts, the leftover weight of the day, imagine you can set it down beside you, the way you might place a folded coat on a chair. Now breathe in slowly, as if you're sipping cool air through a straw. Let the inhale feel smooth and steady. And as you breathe out, let it be longer, like a slow sigh that tells your body like it's safe to loosen. Again, a calm breath in and a gentler breath out. Picture the night outside your window, wherever you are. Maybe it's quiet, maybe it hums with distant city sounds or the soft chorus of wind. No matter what you hear, there is a larger silence behind it, wide and waiting, like a soft blanket laid across the world. In your mind, imagine a path, not a hard path, not a sharp one, a path made of pine needles and leaf dust, springy underfoot. The air is cool enough to be refreshing, but not cold. It carries the scent of moss, damp bark, and a sweetness like crushed wild herbs. Somewhere far away, a stream is speaking to itself over stones. Somewhere closer, an owl offers a single note and then becomes quiet again. As you listen, you don't have to do anything at all. You don't have to picture every detail perfectly. Just let the story arrive the way dreams do, softly and at their own pace. And now, as your breathing finds its easy rhythm, the story begins. The forest was old, but not heavy with age. It was old the way a well-loved book is old. Pages softened, spine warmed by hands, words settled into their places. In the evening, when daylight thinned into silvery threads, the trunks seemed to stand a little closer together, as if leaning in to listen. Under those trees, a fox moved like a quiet thought. His coat was the color of ember glow, rust and cinnamon warmed by sun that had already slipped behind the hills. His tail was full and elegant, the tip brushed pale as cream. He padded along a deer trail, placing each paw with patient care, listening to the hush between sounds. He was not afraid of the night. The night was familiar. It carried coolness for his whiskers and comfort for his eyes, and 1,000 faint stories written in scent. He had been wandering without urgency, the way one does when the evening is long and there is nowhere else to be. The day had been full of ordinary things, a few quick hunts, a nap beneath fern fronds, the gentle stirring of leaves when squirrels argued overhead. Now came the time when the forest changed its voice. Birds quieted, shadows grew rounder, the air became a little little more secret. The fox liked this time best. As he walked, the last light caught in small places, on the smooth curve of a river stone, on a spider's web strung between twigs, on the glossy leaves of wintergreen. Everything seemed to keep a small memory of brightness. He paused near a fallen log, sniffing at the bark. The log was dotted with pale mushrooms like tiny mooncaps. Somewhere beneath it, beetles made their slow work. The fox listened, not with his ears alone, but with his whole body. The forest, when one paid attention, was never truly silent. It was filled with the smallest movements and the softest conversations. A breeze stirred, bringing with it a scent that did not belong entirely to the woods. It was warm, like beeswax, and faintly it smelled of metal cooled by air. The fox lifted his head, ears turning. He tested the air again, slow and careful. There was something else, too. Something like dried lavender or old paper or the inside of a well-kept drawer. Curious, he followed the scent. The trail led away from the deer path and into a thicket where young saplings grew close together. The fox slipped through easily, fur-brushing leaves. The ground here was soft with needles, and the roots curled like sleepy fingers. He moved downhill toward a hollow where ferns gathered and stones held the last warmth of day. That was when he saw it. At first it looked like a fallen star tucked among the grass, a small light, steady and honey-colored, shining low to the earth. The fox stopped at the edge of the hollow, eyes narrowing. The light did not flicker like lightning bugs. It did not wink like moonlight through leaves. It held itself with calm assurance, as if it had always been there. He took one step, then another, lowering his head. The scent grew stronger, beeswax and metal, and something like a story. There, half hidden in tall grass, sat a lantern. It was not large. It might have fit easily between two human hands. Its frame was made of thin metal, darkened with age and weather, yet still smooth and graceful. Curved panes of glass formed its sides, and within a candle burned with a small, unwavering flame. The fox circled it once, careful not to touch. He expected the lantern to be hot, but when he leaned close, he felt only gentle warmth. The light poured outward like a quiet sigh, illuminating blades of grass, the underside of fern leaves, the fox's own paws. In that glow, everything seemed softer at the edges. He sniffed the lantern's handle. It smelled like old journeys, like someone had carried it many nights, through many kinds of dark, and then set it down, perhaps only for a moment. But no footsteps lingered nearby, no fresh human scent, only the forest and the lantern and the fox's steady breathing. He sat back on his haunches and watched the flame. Foxes, of course, do not wonder in words the way humans do. Their curiosity is an instinctive thing, an inclination of attention. Yet in the fox's watching, there was something like a question, a quiet, unhurried question. The lantern answered without speaking. It flame leaned slightly, as if acknowledging him. The light seemed to brighten only a little, like a friendly smile. And then, as if satisfied, it returned to its steady burn. The fox tilted his head. Something in him softened. He felt strangely less alone than he had a moment ago, not because the lantern was a creature, or because it could speak, but because its light had a presence. It was a companionable thing, making a small circle of warmth in a wide forest. He rose and stepped closer, testing the boundary of the glow. The light touched his chest and chin, warming the underside of his fur. His whiskers shone pale. His eyes reflected gold. And then, with the simple certainty of an animal following what feels right, the fox turned and began to walk. He did not pick up the lantern. He did not need to. The lantern, as if understanding, began to move too. It lifted only a little from the grass, as though buoyed by the air itself. The handle swayed gently. The flame remained steady. The lantern drifted forward, keeping pace beside the fox, hovering at the height of his shoulder. The fox glanced at it once, and then kept walking. They moved together through the hollow and back toward the deer path, the lantern's glow traveling with them like a small moon caught in a metal frame. The forest responded in subtle ways. Moths appeared, drawn to the light, fluttering in slow loops. Dew on leaves brightened as they passed. The path ahead became softly visible, not sharp and glaring, but kindly lit, as if the night itself were making room. The fox felt no fear. The lantern's presence was soothing, and the forest, his home, felt even more welcoming in its glow. They wandered without haste. The deer trail led between tall pines that breathed out resin scent when the air cooled. Underfoot, the ground dipped and rose gently, like the slow rhythm of sleep. Somewhere, a creek braided its way through stones. The fox heard it and angled toward it, drawn by the sound. As they approached, the trees thinned a little, and the creek appeared. Dark water gliding over pebbles, the surface catching the lantern light in tiny moving coins. The fox stepped to the edge and drank, lapping quietly. The water tasted of granite and leaves. Behind him, the lantern hovered, reflecting in the stream like a second flame beneath the surface. When the fox finished, he sat for a moment, watching the water carry the light away in ripples. He could have stayed there all night, but the lantern drifted onward, slowly, as if inviting him to follow. The fox stood and padded after it. They went deeper into the forest, where the trees grew older, their branches layered like dark lace against the sky. The moon had risen now, high and pale, a gentle presence behind passing clouds. Yet even with moonlight, the lantern mattered. It made the near world intimate. It lit up small things that might otherwise be missed. A snail shell gleaming softly, a tuft of moss bright green, a line of ants carrying crumbs like a tiny parade. The fox's ears twitched at a sound, a faint chime far away. He paused, and the lantern paused too, as if listening. The chime came again, a delicate note like glass touched by wind. It did not sound like any forest creature. It sounded like something hung in a doorway, greeting gentle visitors. The fox began to walk toward it. The path grew narrower, winding between roots that rose like sleeping ridges. The air here felt different, still forest air, but stirred with something faintly sweet, like smoke from a distant hearth. The lantern's flame remained calm, but its light seemed to stretch slightly farther, as if pleased. The chimes sounded once more, and then the fox came upon a clearing. It was small, cradled by trees. The ground was covered in soft grass that looked brushed and tended, though no one could be seen. In the center stood a stone circle, and within it a low fire pit, filled not with flame, but with pale, glowing coals, as if the fire had just been banked for the night. Nearby, a tiny cottage rested beneath the trees. It was not a human cottage, not quite. It was smaller, and it seemed grown rather than built. Its walls were made of woven branches and smooth clay, its roof thatched with reeds and moss. A round window caught the lantern light and reflected it back. The door was a simple curve of wood, and above it hung the source of the chiming sound, a strand of tiny shells that tinkled and when the air moved. The fox stood at the edge of the clearing, body still, tail low and relaxed. He smelled warm herbs, dried flowers, and something like honey. The lantern drifted forward, floating toward the cottage door. As it did, the door opened without a hand. Just a gentle swing inward, revealing a dim, cozy interior. A soft golden light glowed from within, not bright but comforting, like the memory of daylight lingering in a room. The fox did not rush. He waited, listening. From inside came a sound, the slow bubbling of a kettle, the whisper of a broom across a floor. The smell of chamomile drifted out, warm and inviting. A figure appeared in the doorway. It was small, no taller than the fox's shoulders. It moved with the calm steadiness of someone who never hurried. Its face was partly shadowed, but the fox could see bright, kind eyes. The figure wore a cloak, the color of bark, and its hair, if it was hair, looked like pale moss or fine grasses. It looked at the lantern and then at the fox, and there was no surprise in its expression. Only a gentle recognition, as if this meeting had been expected. The figure bowed slightly, and the shells above the door chimed again. The fox blinked, slow and calm. The lantern hovered between them like a polite introduction. The figure reached out, not to grab, but to cradle the lantern's handle in a careful palm. When it touched the metal, the flame brightened for a moment, as if greeting an old friend. Then it settled again, steady as breathing. The figure stepped aside, leaving the doorway open. The fox, guided by quiet trust, padded forward. He crossed into the cottage, the lantern floating after him. Inside, the air was warm and scented with herbs. The floor was smooth wood, worn soft by many steps. Along the walls were shelves filled with jars, dried petals, seeds, small stones, folded scraps of cloth, tiny bundles tied with twine. In one corner, a kettle simmered over a small stove. sending up steam that curled like a sleepy ribbon. In another, a low bed of woven reeds and blankets sat near the hearth, as if waiting for someone who liked to nap. The fox stood in the center of the room and looked around. He felt no urge to run, no tension in his muscles. Everything here was calm. The small figure moved quietly, pouring steaming tea into a cup no bigger than an acorn shell, and then into a second cup, slightly larger. The cups were set on a little table. The figure sat on a cushion and gestured, inviting the fox closer. The fox did not drink tea, of course, but he approached the table and sniffed. The scent was soothing, chamomile and a hint of mint. The steam warmed his nose. He sat beside the table, curling his tail around his paws. The lantern floated to a hook in the ceiling, as if it knew where it belonged. It settled there, hanging and glowing softly, casting gentle light across the room. For a time, nothing needed to happen. The figure sipped its tea slowly. The fox listened to the kettle, to the settling of the cottage, to the faint sounds of the forest outside. He felt in that simple quiet something like a resting place inside himself, a safe hollow where the day could end. At last the figure rose and moved to a shelf. It took down a small book, not a large human book, but a little one bound in soft leather. It opened it carefully, and the pages gave off a scent like dried flowers and rain. The figure sat again and began to turn pages, as if searching for something. The fox watched, eyes half-lidded. Then the figure stopped at a page and smiled. It held the book up so the fox could see. On the page was a drawing of a lantern, and beside it, a fox. The drawing was simple but unmistakable. Underneath there were marks, words perhaps, or symbols that carried meaning like wind carries seeds. The fox stared at the drawing. He did not understand books the way humans did, but he understood shapes and feelings. The page felt warm to look at, like recognition. The figure gently closed the book and set it aside. Then it reached into a small basket and pulled out a strip of cloth, pale and soft. It tied it around the lantern's handle, making a little ribbon that fluttered faintly in the warm air. The lantern's flame brightened again, pleased. The figure looked at the fox and with a slow gesture pointed toward the door. Not a command, an invitation. The fox stood, stretching forward, back legs straightening, tail lifting in a relaxed curve. He padded to the door, the figure followed, and together they stepped outside into the clearing. Night had deepened. The sky was darker, the stars clearer. The trees stood like gentle guardians, their tops swaying softly. The lantern floated out ahead of the fox, ribbon trailing, and began to drift toward a path at the far side of the clearing, a path the fox had not noticed before. It was narrow, lined with stones that glimmered faintly, as if they had been washed in moonlight. The fox hesitated only a moment, then he followed. The small figure stood in the doorway of the cottage, watching. It lifted a hand in a slow farewell, though its expression suggested It was not truly goodbye, only a pause in meeting. The fox walked down the new path with the lantern beside him. As they went, the forest seemed to change, though the trees were the same. The air became more still, as if holding its breath. The ground grew softer, covered in thick moss that muted sound. The lantern's glow pooled on the path, making it look like a ribbon of warm light laid across the earth. They passed a grove of birches whose pale trunks shone like quiet ghosts. Between them, the fox glimpsed something that looked like a doorway made of vines. But when he turned his head, it was only branches leaning together. Still, the feeling remained. The forest was full of hidden thresholds, gentle and waiting. The fox's paws carried him onward, steady and calm. Soon the path began to slope downward. The air cooled slightly and the scent of water returned, stronger now. The sound of the creek grew louder, not harsh but fuller, as if many small voices had joined into one soothing song. They reached a place where the creek widened into a pool. The pool was clear, reflecting the stars above. Smooth stones ringed its edge and reeds swayed softly. At the far side, the water spilled over a low ledge into a narrow stream, making a continuous hush, like someone whispering endlessly and kindly. The lantern drifted to the edge of the pool, hovering over the water. Its light touched the surface and spread across it, turning the pool into a bowl of gold and silver. The fox sat beside it watching. In the water, shapes moved. Not fish, though there were fish, small and quick, darting in the shadows. These shapes were softer, slower, like dreams taking form. The fox blinked and the shapes became clearer, little scenes appearing and dissolving. He saw a field under morning mist. He saw a hollow log where he had once slept. He saw the face of his mother long ago, her eyes bright and watchful. He saw the moon rising over trees, the same moon that now hung above him. The images were not sharp. They were gentle impressions, like memories drifting through the mind before sleep. The fox watched without gripping. Anyone seen, he let them come and go. The lantern's flame stayed calm, steady as a heart at rest. After a while, the images shifted. The pool now showed places the fox had never been. Mountains under snowfall, a coastline where waves rolled in slow lines, a meadow lit by fireflies like floating stars. The fox's ears twitched, but he remained still. He felt no need to chase these visions. They were simply gifts offered by the water and the lantern's light. A breeze moved across the pool, making the reflections tremble. The lantern's ribbon fluttered, and the flame leaned slightly. The lantern began to drift away from the pool, back toward the path. The fox rose, following. They continued through the forest, and the path grew even softer, as if leading into the heart of quiet. The trees here were taller, their trunks thick, their branches interlaced overhead, making a canopy that held the night like a bowl. The lantern's glow was a warm pebble of light, moving through deep shadow. The fox's breathing slowed. His steps grew more unhurried. A drowsiness began to settle over him, not heavy but sweet. The kind of tiredness that feels like coming home. They came to a hill where the ground rose gently. At the top there was a circle of stones, and within it a bed of leaves piled thick and clean, as if someone had raked and arranged them carefully. The leaves were dry and soft, their edges curled. They smelled of earth and autumn. Beside the leaf bed stood a stump, and on it a small dish carved from wood. Inside the dish were a few berries and a piece of honeycomb, glistening faintly. It looked like an offering, simple and kind. The fox approached the dish and sniffed. The berries were sweet, the honey rich. He ate slowly, savoring. The food warmed him from the inside like a small comfort. Then he turned to the bed of leaves. The lantern drifted above it, hanging in the air like a patient star. Its light fell over the leaves, making them glow in shades of bronze and gold. The fox stepped into the circle and lowered himself onto the leaves. They cradled his body, shifting and settling with a soft whisper. He turned once, then again, making a nest. His tail curled around him. His head rested on his paws. The lantern hovered close, not too bright, not too near. Just enough to make the space feel held. Above, the canopy of branches swayed gently. Through a small opening, the fox could see the moon, calm and pale. A cloud drifted past it like a slow thought. The fox's eyes grew heavier. He blinked, slow and long. The lantern's flame flickered once, just a tiny dance, and then steadied again. The ribbon on its handle hung limp now, barely moving. The forest breathed around them. In the distance, the creek whispered. Closer, leaves sighed against each other. Somewhere, a night bird called once, and then fell silent. The fox's ears relaxed. His whiskers stopped twitching. His breathing became deep and even. As he lay there, he felt something gentle settle over him, like the softest blanket. It was not only tiredness, it was a sense of being guided, of being cared for by the quiet intelligence of the world. The lantern had not demanded anything of him. It had simply shown the way to places of calm, to water that held dreams, to a bed made ready. The lantern's glow softened, as if dimming in sympathy with his closing eyes. Not going out, just becoming more tender, more distant, like a light seen through sleep. The fox let his eyes close fully. In his mind, images drifted like those in the pool, a path of moss, a cottage under trees, a strand of shells chiming in the breeze, the small figure's kind eyes, the lantern floating beside him like a warm companion. None of it needed to be understood. It only needed to be felt. The fox's paws twitched once. A small motion, and then grew still. The lantern remained above him, steady and watchful, like a guardian of rest. Now the night grows quieter still. The forest holds its breath in the gentlest way. The leaves are still. The air is smooth. The lantern's light is a soft glow, barely more than a warm idea in the darkness. The fox sleeps curled on his bed of leaves, safe within the circle of stones. His breathing is slow and deep. Each breath eases him further into comfort, further into calm. The creek continues its endless whisper, smoothing the edges of the world. The moon drifts behind a thin veil of cloud, and the stars shine softly through it. Everything is unhurried. The lantern's flame stays steady, not bright, not demanding, just present, just kind. And as the fox rests, the forest rests with him. If there are thoughts still moving through the mind, let them move like clouds, slowly, gently, passing on without needing to be held. If there are sensations in the body, let them soften. Let the shoulders sink. Let the hands be loose. Let the breath be easy. In the hush of this imagined forest, it is safe to let go. The fox dreams quietly, as if dreaming is simply another way of listening. The lantern watches over those dreams, its small circle of light warm and calm. The night deepens, the story slows, the world becomes simpler. A soft bed of leaves, a steady glow, a slow, peaceful breath. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.